Is a new member of our committee, the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Hollingsworth, for 5 minutes.
Hi, good morning. Thanks everybody for being here. As she said, I'm a new member here, and so I come from a business background, manufacturing specifically, and because of that, I think about two different things all the time, right? I think about results and processes, and it feels like that's a lot of the debate that we're having here, right? What I hear from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle is that the CFPB is getting results, however they define that, and a lot of them, right? But I think what matters a lot to us is making sure that we get results by the right process and making sure that we manage that process. Because it's always been my experience in manufacturing that when you focus only on results and driving more through without an adherence to a process, you end up with bad results and results gotten through misguided processes. I mean, when they measure results, don't you think that we, and this question would be to Mr. Olson specifically to start with, but we could probably get more results if we just suspended the Bill of Rights and made the CFPB power unlimited. They could then get many, many more results, but I'm not sure that we'd be satisfied or happy with the results, and certainly I don't think we would feel good about the trampling of our civil liberties in the process. But don't we think if we are just going to focus on results, as my colleagues frequently talk about, that we could get more of them if we just suspended all the limitations on CFPB power, whatever they may be?
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. If you eliminated elections, if you eliminated all of the protections, structural protections, and the Bill of Rights, you could do whatever you wanted to do. You would call that results. Over the long term, the results would not be acceptable to the American people, because our liberties and our freedoms are essential bedrock to what our constitutional system of government is.
Right. Mr. White?
I agree, and as the framers indicated, the first and foremost safeguard of our liberties is, in fact, the checks and balances, the structural Constitution.
Absolutely. I think so again, I talk about misaligned incentives a lot in my prior business career, right? If you provide people the incentive to deliver in one metric alone without governing some of the how they get there, people will find a way to do that. And I think in the CFPB's case, that's certainly the case. In the way that they are funded and elsewhere, we provided them incentive to take action and left that incentive somewhat unchecked. And because of that, we've gotten some poor results. And so I guess, I know we've talked a little bit about the constitutionality, but the process for getting back under constitutional governance, walk me through some of the steps that you would see, Mr. Olson, in terms of how we might pursue that and what mechanically we can do to begin to get that process back under control.
Well, we would recommend that restore the president's power to control the subordinates in the executive branch, those who enforce the law. Right. Restore congressional control over the budget of the agency, because that gives the agency the responsibility to come to you and say, here's what we've done, here's how we're doing it, these are the funds that we need in order to do it. You then ask the questions, you conduct your oversight. Right. That's been completely removed. We also made other suggestions in our written testimony, but those are the two things that strike me as the most important, because it's this body, the congressional body, that controls and makes the laws and needs to have that oversight, and it's the president then has the responsibility to see that it's done properly in accordance with the laws that you enact.
Right. I mean, when I hear my friend across the aisle talk about what counts, I think accountability counts, and it really matters in setting up a system that reflects the will of the people. And I know in my district, transferring a little bit from my business career to the campaign over the last 18 months, what I heard over and over again from my constituents was a grave concern of the expansion of a bureaucracy, an expansion of a bureaucracy that has more and more power over their lives, the power to shape their futures, to determine the limits of their opportunities. And they don't get any recourse. There's no means of redress to those individuals. They can't call them up in the same way they call me every single day to tell me they hate what I'm doing, they don't like what I'm doing, or alternatively, that they love what I'm doing and I should keep going, right? And we need that level of accountability. And I think much of what I heard in the last election was the feeling like the officials they elect no longer have the power to shape their futures, but it's instead the unelected bureaucracy that continues to limit their futures. And I hope that the last election, if we took anything away, was a feeling that the power needs to go back to the people and their elected representatives that those people are putting in office. Thank you so much for being here.
Gentleman yields